morning, FEI, and welcome to our Career Management Group meeting. I'm Kathy Kilroy, the Career Management Group Program Committee Chair, and my company, CMP, along with the Overture Group, are the sponsor companies for the Career Management Group. Mike, give us a wave from the Overture Group. Thank you. At CMP, our business is all about helping people advance in your careers. So we work with organizations across the full talent cycle to recruit, assess, and develop people and transition employees and transform careers with outplacement solutions. For today's meetings, just a couple of announcements. You can please place yourself on mute for the presentation. You're welcome to keep your camera on. You can ask questions through the chat at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be taking questions throughout the presentation and want to make this as interactive as possible. And I know this is a chatty group, so we welcome your questions. FEI Chicago will offer 1 CPE credit for your participation in the meeting this morning. You must attend the full session and then request your credit from Susan Gidley at FEI Chicago. Susan's email address is info@feichicago.org, and that'll be in the chat as well. I want to welcome all of our guests and let you know that FEI is offering a free 6-month trial membership, which I encourage you to take advantage of. Susan, you want to share the screen? Thank you. So, I've been a long time member and sponsor of FEI and have developed so many wonderful friendships with FEI colleagues and learned so much in the process. Our Chicago chapter is a very active chapter and a welcoming group. As an FEI member, you'll have the opportunity to connect and build relationships with other financial leaders, not only in Chicago, but nationally as well, to expand your network and benchmark best practices. You can participate in both live and virtual professional development forums and to stay current and receive CPE credits. We also have a number of leadership opportunities for local and national committees, which gives you an opportunity to boost your own career. And if anybody is particularly interested in being on the program committee, please reach out to me afterwards. We also have an online portal, which gives you access to the national network as well. You're welcome to invite your colleagues at work to join you and participate in these sessions as a member, and please feel free to share this opportunity with other colleagues as well. And now on to our topic. We're excited about this topic, leveraging LinkedIn in your personal brand. This is something we all need to know and to get better at. Whether you're working for an organization, looking for your next opportunity, working on a gig assignment, or in a consulting or business development role, we all need to be better and have a better presence on LinkedIn. I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Kelly Kellen. Kelly is an expert, and she's going to cover LinkedIn from a branding perspective. Kelly is a professor in digital marketing and entrepreneurship at Aurora University. She also serves as a fractional chief marketing officer and consultant to small and medium-sized businesses. Welcome, Kelly. I'll turn it over to you to share more.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I really appreciate the intro and the opportunity to speak to this crowd. I love LinkedIn, and it is one social media platform that really is a great place to have a presence, a professional presence. I teach my students how to utilize that. And I really do get asked often like some really basic questions about like, what do I post or how often do I post? But first, what I want to start off with is understanding how you set this up, right? And there's so many bells and whistles to LinkedIn. It has evolved over time. And there's just some key things that I think are strategic. So I would encourage all of you at some point to go through your privacy settings and just look at every single thing that's set, make sure that it is what you want. When I get asked, like, what do I do? A lot of times I'll say, well, that depends on what you're wanting to do. What is it that you want to use LinkedIn for? So some individuals would like to look for a job, right? It's a great way to maintain some career connections, do some networking, build out really kind of different pathways for yourself, maybe get some experiences, reach people that you might not have been able to reach before, and get involved with conversations and groups from a career standpoint. Some individuals would really like to create a presence for themselves so that their employees, their vendors, their sort of ecosystem that they live in, the industry that they live in, that they are known for their values, their skill set. And some are really kind of pushing the envelope, wanting to be thought leaders and be more, maybe even be disruptive in the market, right? Create some, new, maybe it's like fintech or something, new technologies out there to be sort of that leading edge. So it does depend on, and I'm going to say this a lot in the conversation today, is it depends. It depends on what your goal is. So one of the things that I would encourage you guys to do right now, if you have an opportunity to grab like a piece of paper and a pen and make some notes. And it's not notes on the how to, because I'm going to show you how to like click on this button, click on that button. And Susan, can you remind me, you are going to be distributing these slides after the program, is that correct?
Correct.
Sure. So all of my slides, all of my notes will be available to you after this. So if you like, don't worry about like going on to LinkedIn right now and trying to change your settings or doing anything like that. I just want you to focus on why, what is meaningful to you. The second thing is that I'm going to be asking you a little bit about, and again, this is rhetorical, so you can like write it on your piece of paper, about some of your goals. If you have questions, as Kathy said, please put them in the chat and I will either answer them today, or if I don't know, I will make sure that I help feed that information over to Susan and Kathy for follow-up, or you're certainly welcome to contact me via email, phone, or whatever, and I'm happy to walk through anything with you after this presentation. So I'm going to share some slides with you, some visuals here, and you can see that my contact information is here. My email. I also have an email address at Aurora University. So you may sometimes get something from kkellen@aurorauniversity.com. That's also another option for me. So I was looking through some articles and information about why CFOs really engage or how they're engaging on social media. And some of the top ones were to become a more strategic leader, tap into a broader network of peers, relate better to staff and employees. And I will tell you that there are a lot of your staff and employees from a variety of different ages on LinkedIn. It's really a place, think of it like a trade show, that there's just a lot of people that are sort of milling around. Some of them are very active, some of them are on megaphones, some of them have booths, but it really is sort of like a virtual trade show on a daily basis. When you are on LinkedIn or any social media platform, you are discoverable. So investors and analysts are looking at your profiles. They're able to, dig in there, look at things unless you have certain settings turned off. So there's people viewing you in relationship to your company and how you fit into the whole picture. You can also just, I think, open up some doors to become more marketable by becoming more digitally savvy is one of the other areas that certain CFOs were feeling like if they could just get, more digitally savvy, they could tap into and access. I think it's really about opportunities, broadening their network. And then there are a lot of disruptive technologies out there, whether that is companies out there creating new technologies or startups tend to be on LinkedIn and using social media. So it's a way to kind of keep a pulse on things that are happening in the industry. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the LinkedIn mechanics, what settings matter. And there's a couple CFO profiles that we can take a peek at. And then we'll talk about your content plan. And notice on here, I don't have anything about personal branding, but that content plan is wrapped around your personal branding. So we'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. On this slide, I actually created a little hot link here that will take you to the back end of LinkedIn. For those of you who are not familiar with LinkedIn, there's a LinkedIn Learning section, and this link will take you to a lot of the settings and how to set up your profile in a video format step by step. So again, you don't have to take those types of notes today. You can either follow my slides or go to that video. The first thing to think about is where does all this stuff live? So up in the upper right-hand corner, you can click on your profile, select privacy and settings. And I've created a checklist for you of things that I think matter and are important that you should do probably first thing. And then some of the other features and functionality you can dig into second. The first one is visibility of your LinkedIn status. So whenever you make changes to LinkedIn, if you go to that privacy and setting link on the left-hand side, it says visibility. You want to look at this share profile updates with your network. So if I change my photograph, if I start making changes to like I took on a new job, it's going to notify people in my network that I made a change. If you're doing what I call maintenance cleanup work, you might want to turn that off, make all of your changes that you want to make, and then turn it back on and make one last change so that it goes out to your network so that you're not bombarding them with, oh, I updated my profile picture. Oh, I updated my job status. Oh, I changed this, and it gets to be a little, frankly, kind of annoying, right? The other thing that I want you guys to consider is, and this is a preference for you, yes or no, when you have your profile discovered and visible off of LinkedIn, it means that you can show up in Google search results. So you have to think about, do you want to be discoverable as a person? I've always said, yes, of course. I want, when people Google me, I want my LinkedIn to show up more than anything. I want my LinkedIn to show up more than any other probably social media site that I have. I've had people tell me that they don't want to be found like that because of privacy issues. I had this poor woman actually who literally had somebody stalking her. So she did not want to be discoverable at all, sort of erasing her digital footprint as much as possible, but still trying to maintain the privacy and the inner workings of LinkedIn. So you can turn that off if you wish. But when I Google myself, I have my LinkedIn profile, fractional CMO, Rewire Marketing, LinkedIn. This little blurb right here is what is in my summary. So it gives you a couple lines of your summary. Apparently there's other Kelly Kellens out there, but it'll provide a list of everybody. And then it'll say maybe there's like 10 or 15 different Kelly Kellens on LinkedIn. So there's, ways that you can differentiate yourself through your title and your description so people know who I am and I can be found. The next thing we want to think about is how people can connect with you. So in account access, you have an opportunity to provide an email address and a phone number. And you'll see that I have 2 email addresses here. The phone number is nice because you can have it text you, and if you lost your password or whatever, it's a recovery mechanism. The reason that I have 2 email addresses is because I have one that is work related, and then I have a Gmail address. And I really encourage my students to make sure that if they're putting that professional email address, like their student address or maybe a place that they work, that they have a secondary address like Gmail. So if somebody were to be let go or you leave a company, you lose access to that professional address. And this way you always have some way to access your account or to back, and you don't want people emailing you at your work address, right? If you're no longer there. So making sure that you have that backup address. The place that when I look at my profile, the place that email and phone number show up, if you choose it to show up, you don't have to, is your contact information. So I have my mobile number there and my consulting address. And even though I have multiple addresses on the back end, I'm just showing the one there, kind of directing people to where I want them to go. The next thing that I want to point out to you is your site preferences. So in site preferences, there's something called people also viewed. And for those of you who are looking for a job, or possibly you have a responsibility to network with vendors, or you don't want you've got a like account management type responsibilities. You don't want people to see things like this. This is my friend Tom, and he's vice president member of operations at NRTC. And when we click on his profile, people also viewed people who are similar to him. So there's a laundry list of people over here on the right. And you can turn this function off. And I highly recommend it, because I'm all about, if somebody's looking at my profile, I don't want them shopping around or being distracted by other people. Again, this is a personal preference. Some people like this because they like to be associated with, hey, look at me, I'm as equal to, Brian or Matt, who are also, VPs in this industry. This is my circle of, friends, or whatever the case may be. It just depends on what your strategy really is and how comfortable you feel with this people also viewed turned on. So the other thing that I want you guys to think about, sorry about that, I lost. So visibility in your network, the other one here down here is connections. In connections, you can choose whether or not people can see your connections list. And that is right here. So I have, there's a limit here. If you have, once you hit 500, it will never disclose how many more people you're connected to. But if this is turned on, people can go through your contact list. So it's kind of like a Rolodex, right? It's sort of a little bit, I can go through there. And I've had salespeople go through my connections and say, hey, I know somebody, or and then we really, what I find out is they're just sort of spamming me and going through that. I think it's important to think about how you want people to access your network, especially if you're in sales or doing any type of competitive networking itself. As a mentor at Aurora University, I really do like to give students access to some of the people that I know so that they can get opportunities and help them network, give them a leg up. But I typically don't have that on. My list is mostly founders and executives like yourself. So I just, keep it closed.
Kelly, excuse me, we have a question.
Yes.
So if you turn off the people also viewed function,
mm-hmm.
do you no longer show up in other profiles, people viewed section?
Yes, you do. You still show up there. That's not a function of you. That's a function of them.
Okay.
So, yeah. So if you had that is just strictly your profile, you can still show up. If somebody clicked on me and then clicked on you, you can still show up. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. So like I said, I'm kind of just highlighting some of these sort of checklist items to be thinking about, because we want to make sure we understand the digital impacts of what these little levers will do for us, and make sure that they're in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish on LinkedIn.
Kelly, I have a question as well. I think I read somewhere that your headline and your summary in LinkedIn are like 80% of the algorithm of LinkedIn. And so obviously very important to have that optimized.
It is an important feature it is an important thing to optimize, but I will tell you that the algorithms are not that simplistic.
Okay.
So the algorithms are looking at, just like search engine optimizations, the algorithms are looking at your domain authority. So how well is your profile filled out? Is it in alignment with other things? How active are you? What are you posting? Who's clicking on your things? Who's engaging? Who's commenting? And they sort of pull up, it's hundreds, if not 1,000 parameters together to kind of rank that. One of the things that they do, however, is when LinkedIn has a new feature like live video or anything like that that's come out recently, if you're using a new feature on LinkedIn, they tend to prioritize those features, or people who are using those features, as a little bit higher than other people, because it's a new feature and they want to push out that content. The other thing that is true for any social media is if you are advertising on social media, your advertisements tend to be prioritized over organic. And that's just because people paid for that. So I wanted to take a look at a couple, it's just a CFO, right? I've got a couple CFOs listed on my site that I think have done a really good job of filling out their profiles. So let's take a look at Carrie Thomas. Okay, so one of the things that you can do here in this little level here is notice how her, she's got a lot of keywords here, 2020 woman on boards, board member, she's got CFO. You can customize this to say whatever you want. If you don't customize it, it's going to display your most recent job title, and that's it. So she's gone in and added a couple other lines, really helping us understand a little bit more about who she is. If you notice, she's got 500 plus connections. I can't click on this because she has that closed. Her contact information, she just has her website and her LinkedIn page. That's fine. She's kept it very tight, very clean, but you can't connect with her, and or if you hit more, you can follow her, share her profile message, a couple things you can do here. She's a very nice filled out about section. This is also helpful for discoverability. I try to encourage people just to keep it simple. It's an elevator pitch, make it authentic to you. It's not a commercial. And then she has some things that are featured. So these are things that she felt from a chief executive on the future of finance function, Oracle NetSuite. Notice these are not her articles, but she's presenting herself as somebody who's in the industry who knows what's going on. And then you can see that she has activity, and these are conversations. So she's gotten 142 responses, 16 comments, and she's just commenting. As a leader, I've learned that when there's an opportunity to make your team both more efficient and happier, you take it. Great words, blah, 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 right? She's just got a nice little summary there. It's really not about finance. It's about her being in leadership, talking about current relevant events, about office space, whether to come in the office or not. But notice 142, I would say, pieces of engagement and then 16 comments. So she's in the space, she's having a conversation. Think about this like you're at a trade show and you're talking to a group of people and how you're networking with them. And maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group of 5 or 6, and you're meeting them throughout the day at different events and doing different things. You just need to engage. And this is why LinkedIn is so powerful, because it's on 24/7 and you can jump into these conversations. I could jump into this conversation right now and I could make a comment right here, and I don't even know her, but I can join this conversation. So some people are a little intimidated because they feel as though they have to, I think we all kind of grew up in a way in our industries where there was a formality to things about shaking hands and passing business cards and doing these things. But on LinkedIn, it's just really about joining these conversations. I think the important thing, and I'll tell my students this, is it needs to be authentic, relevant, meaningful. People who just sort of spam things, they get called out pretty quickly. I think on platforms like Facebook and TikTok, there's a lot more activity like that that's tolerated. It's really just not here, and because it's a professional environment. So when we go back and we look a little bit more at Carrie's profile, we see her activity. She lays out her experience very well, her education. She has licenses and certification. She even includes some volunteering, which I really appreciate. And then her skills and recommendations. Now, on recommendations, it's something that's turned on here. It is for everyone. This is becoming a thing that's not as relevant to maybe somebody at your level, but maybe a student or somebody who needs to get some referrals, or maybe if you're in consulting. But it's not, I wouldn't say that it's something really important to pay attention to at the moment. Honors and awards. I do believe that interest companies and groups are really important because it provides you an opportunity, again, to jump into conversations. Women in finance, there's only 382 members, but there's meaningful conversations in these sort of niche groups that you can participate in. And let's take a look at, she's got a lot of really interesting kind of varied, groups that she belongs to. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting in networking is you can come in here and join a group, and then it's also a way to open the door to a conversation or to continue networking with people that you may not have networked with before. So Carrie is in Portland, Oregon. So she's not part of this group, but if you wanted to reach out to her and talk to her, connect with her on LinkedIn, introduce yourself, you have most of you here would have a lot in common with her. And that's that's the power of LinkedIn, right? Your paths are not going to cross here in Chicagoland, or maybe even in this group or some other local networking that you're doing. Any questions about kind of the profile aspect of things?
Go ahead, my friends. If anyone has a question and wants to take yourself off mute, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to pause for a minute because
Yes, take a breath, Kelly. No, this is awesome. I think the detail around the technical aspects of LinkedIn, and it's changing all the time, right? So this is a great update for us because it seems like it's moving fast, and we might have a discussion and 30 days later, LinkedIn looks entirely different or has added some new features.
It can. I've been tripped up on that before, where I show a slide and something's not there anymore. So one of the other things that I'll tell you, there is another functionality on LinkedIn that's fairly new, Kathy, which is called Creator Mode. And Creator Mode gives you a couple other pieces of functionality like live video and also events. So it's just adding another layer to your ability to create things on LinkedIn. If you want to be a thought leader and if you want to do that type of content creation, certainly I'm happy to walk you through it, but I'm not going to do that today because it's a lot to go through. But there's some real advantages to using LinkedIn as a platform to build up your personal brand or your messaging, your thought leadership, and or your brands, like your companies, advocating for certain topics. So we're going to jump into what that.
Kelly, can I just ask about the video before you move on? I mean, I'm curious in a personal sense too. So I know it is becoming more prevalent on LinkedIn, and for people who are either in a sales or business development role, it makes sense. Probably for people who are consulting or looking for fractional or gig assignments, what are some of the best protocols in terms of length? Is it a 30-second video, or what's the tolerance for people to really listen to a video that's more of an advertisement kind of thing versus a teaching?
Sure. I think that there's two things to think about. One is think about yourself, right? Really pay attention to how you consume content. That is also going to help inform you about what to do. So these shorter videos, these 15-second, 30-second videos are really great because if you think about how you consume content, that's what you're watching, right? If you're going to sit down and watch a 20-minute, 30-minute, an hour-long video, you're like into a webinar. You're into something that you've committed to, you've signed up for. If you're just scrolling, people want like 15 seconds, 30 seconds. The second thing that I will tell you is that I don't really know, because you really need to pay attention to the data. So when you look at posting a video, go back, look at the metrics, who engaged with it, right? How long were they on it? Like, understand the data behind it. That data is going to inform you of your next steps, right? So we're going to talk about a content plan video, and that content plan can be an art, come out in the medium of, a written article, a meme, a video, all kinds of things. And from there, you're going to build that content plan. You're going to measure things that you're doing. And again, that will inform the next step, because If I had a crystal ball, if I knew exactly, and everybody's different, right? Everybody, depending on the content you put out and how often you put it out and all it's like a science experiment. We really need to treat it like that. But the cool thing is that in marketing now, we have the feedback, right? We have the data coming back to us to help us really hone in on and optimize all that content and the work that we're doing. Is that helpful, Kathy?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay. So why do I want you guys to, the reality is there's a lot of people on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people doing content. This isn't new. CMOs and CIOs and a lot of C-level people are starting to do that. In fact, Michael Dell is, the greatest introvert on the planet right now, who never wanted to be in front of anybody, who hates PR, is actively using LinkedIn, commenting on people's profile, their commentary, celebrating his employees. He's even written a book. And I'm sure somebody in marketing said, you have such a strong brand and you're such a neat person and has done so many things in the industry. You really need to put a book out there. So he did create a book on leadership around kindness, being kind wins, and celebrating all of his successes. So even those huge introverts are out there on LinkedIn doing that kind of stuff. But why CFOs? Why is there an opportunity for you guys right now? I will tell you that in doing some research and preparation for this presentation, what I was learning is that there's really very few CFO related discussions leveraging social media. I think because, when you're a chief marketing officer, that's your job, right? That's your job to be the PR person and have the bullhorn and be out there and be really promoting that type of content. The CEOs are supposed to be the face of the company. CIOs are getting attention because there's so much technology right now. So I believe that there's a really strong green field. And Carter Hasley from Leadtail actually did a study on CFOs and said the exact same thing, that you can become a thought leader there, and there's not a lot of competition for that right now. And you could be highly influential on social media. It'll do a couple things for you. Think about the people in your, I would say, ecosystem in your industry, those vendors, those associations, those investors, other analysts, job opportunities, all of your employees, right? All of the employees that you could really start to educate and make aware of some of the strategies around what finance is doing for their company, or maybe how things are changing, or to be aware of. So what would you publish on LinkedIn? We want to start with what I call the 4-1-1 kind of methodology, where you would look at publishing like maybe one original piece of content. That original piece of content, I'll give you a framework for what it could look like and how to develop your content plan. But you want something original. You want to post an article or something on LinkedIn to serve as this sort of anchor. Then you can share something about your brand, the company that you work for, or maybe an update from another source. So in my world, I tend to bump into a lot of technology vendors like Dell, Intel, NVIDIA, a lot of the people in the security industry. So I like read their content and push that out there. There's also other thought leaders that I follow. Simon Sinek is one of them, who talks about leadership, and I'll repost some of his stuff. Adam Grant, who talks about leadership in a social emotional way. I'll post some of his content. I shouldn't say post. I don't post their content. I share their content with my point of view. And then other 4 pieces of posted content. Let me show you what this might look like in a minute. We want to think about those key metrics of post views, people who are looking at that post or your profile, understanding the demographics of your readers, and really that likes, comments, and shares is what we call an engagement metric. You want people engaging with your content. The more they engage with your content, the more you will see that it's like a +1. So think about if you go to a trade show, for example, and one of your colleagues introduces you to somebody else, right? That's the next step, and you shake their hand. Now you have access to their entire network. So I have over, I don't know, I think I have like 1,000 followers. And if you comment on something that I do or share something that I do, people will say, like, in my network, people will know that you're talking about me, right? Things get posted and shared, it becomes very viral. So I think that making sure that you're engaging, if you don't post any original content, making sure that you're engaging on LinkedIn is really important, because that's going to give you the reach that you need. So we want to think about planning out some content pillars and what we call cluster topics. And this is what it looks like. The pillar topic, let's just say it's around, for me, it could be digital strategies. And every one of these little clusters around here points back to sort of my anchor content, my one big article that I wrote about digital strategies. So I might post something about trends or share other statistics around trends that are happening or something that might be newsworthy. And then my next one might be around search engine optimization, because that supports a digital strategy. Talk about the creator economy. I might talk about advertising. I might talk about digital literacy, right? And all of the things that are just around this digital strategy. So I create a really nice, robust content plan this way by using the pillar and cluster model. This is very powerful to tap into the algorithms, because the more you talk about this and you provide supporting topics around it, the more Google, YouTube, who is the second largest search engine next to Google, algorithms on LinkedIn and other social media sites will see you as a domain authority. And when they see you as a domain authority, they'll prioritize your content in the feed. They'll push you up higher on the search engine's results page, and they'll publish your stuff more often through those news feeds that you see. I'm including this in the information that Susan is going to be putting out. There's about a 20-minute video here on content marketing strategies for 2021 that actually go into a lot more detail and provide about 7 or 8 examples in different industries on what a pillar hub with a cluster model looks like in real time. So I'm going to provide that to you as a resource. But here's what I want you to think about when you get out your piece of paper, right, and start thinking about what your personal LinkedIn goal might be. Define clearly what you want to achieve. So are you looking to find a job? And I've had, for example, I'm going to use this as an example. When you think about that specific goal, one of the things that you don't want to do is start telling everybody, hey, I'm looking for a job. Look at my resume. Look at I'm here. What you want to do is more of an inbound strategy. You want to start publishing content that shows your capabilities, your skill set, your talent stack, your values, what you believe in, your point of view, those types of things, so that when you're talking to people about job opportunities and they look at your LinkedIn profile and what you're posting and your engagement, you actually are positioned as a leader, as somebody that they want to hire. The idea of raising your hand on LinkedIn to say, hire me or open to work, I think is not that effective. Your network and who you're networking with is going to be a better strategy. So you have to really kind of understand all of this here, what you're looking to do and what you're looking to accomplish. Let's talk about an example of what I'm going to go through this one more time about some of those content pillars. So if my goal is to be an entrepreneurial thought leadership, be viewed as that, somebody who is entrepreneurial, who has that thought leadership, and my audience is small business owners and startups. I've identified these 3 key pillars for me. I love to talk about lean startup. I love to talk about innovation. I'm a big nerd. I'm really into all of the MarTech and technology that's enabling us to do some of the things that we're doing today. So I have one original piece of content that talks about, I just put together like a lean startup how-to guide. And then I provide these little updates. I try to find founders who are succeeding with that lean startup methodology. And then I also sprinkle in there, like I might just post a quote about lean startup. I might find some statistics or graphics. And these are other people's content that I'm sharing, just to give people a sense of like, hey, this is cool what I found. Everyone's talking about this, not just me. Top, writing another original piece of content, top 10 do's and don'ts for entrepreneurs, or maybe I find something that's already written on another trusted, author, maybe that's posting on Forbes or Entrepreneurship Magazine. And then I like to throw a little bit of humor in there, and maybe some memes about startups or founders. Or there's a gentleman who does marketing cartoons. It's called Tom Fishburne. He's a marketing cartoonist, he calls himself. So I like to just kind of throw out a variety of different content. But again, you can see that it's all sort of focused on this one topic. So it gives me momentum. It gives me a larger voice. The other thing that we need to do is have conversations. So I was sharing with my students that when they have conversations and people click at their profile, they're going to see all this content, right? And they're going to see the articles and things that I'm posting and my engagement, what I'm talking about, my background. And it just gives a whole picture of my personality and who I am. So you got to be authentic, right? Those conversations that you're having, she started searching LinkedIn for certain topics, started joining conversations, and really networking and connecting with those hiring managers and those directors where she wanted to work. And so when she went to go apply for a job, they recognized her name. They said, "Oh yeah, we've seen you on LinkedIn." She rose to the top of the pile just by doing that engagement. And the reverse can happen for you when it comes to recruiting, right? If you want to recruit new hires and finding those new candidates, right, when they're coming, engaging in their content, or inviting them to engage with your content, or even connecting with them, you can start to build a network of activity. Kathy and I were talking about this just yesterday when she asked me, my brother, who's he's also an executive, and he runs he ran actually a chemical company for the printing industry. And when that company would kind of went under, I don't know, maybe it was like 2 months, maybe. I mean, he just started tapping into his network, and within 2 months he got a new job. So, but that also came with a lot of work that he did prior. He didn't start networking when he lost his job. He had been networking for the last 10 years, right? So he built up his presence on LinkedIn over time.
I think that's a super important comment, Kelly, because many people don't become active in LinkedIn until they lose a job, right? So while you're in a job, it's just start with baby steps and start pulling these techniques. I love your pillar strategy. I think it's really impactful. I'm curious on the pillar. Do you repurpose some of that content at certain intervals, or do you just let it sit in your feed and people find it? Oftentimes people are busy. They might miss it the first couple times around, right?
Yes, that's actually a really good point. So there's two things and the reason I want you to think about this content pillar strategy is, one is, it's really great to create content that is evergreen, right? It is really going to, you're going to be discoverable. I mean, I wrote some stuff about the pandemic, and I kind of want to take it down because it's during the time where we were all sheltering in place, and it's just not relevant anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you can think about some things that, sure, there's trends and things that are happening, and right, you can take your content. Here's what some people do from a content strategy standpoint, because sometimes it can be a lot to create. They do a video, then they take that video and they do a transcript of that video. They turn that video into a blog, a very long, like 1,600, 1,200, written article blog. They post it on their website and LinkedIn, or maybe they just do it on LinkedIn. Then they take those kind of granular quotes out of there. They take quotes out of there and put it into, a graphic. So they have a quote from that article that supports that video, because we all consume content differently. So you can take something that you've written and slice it up a couple of different ways, maybe even 10 different ways, to repurpose the work that you're doing. So some people will do kind of a workshop day and create a whole bunch of things all at once, and then piece it out over a month's time, right? So I know these are just strategies. Like, I'll work with clients on this, like to kind of, figure all of that out. But I do agree with you, Kathy. Like, sometimes people feel like they have to write I gotta write another article today. Like, not necessarily, because not everybody's reading every single thing that you do. The reason we want long form And I gave you in that 411, like long form is for an audience that you might not be aware of, which is Google. Google is always combing and looking through your stuff. So you want the long form so that it can have something to kind of figure out who you are and what's going on. We want short form things, little quotes and quips and memes, because, for people like me who have ADD, we're like, oh, I'm just scanning. But when you get my attention, I want to click on something that's meaningful. So then I go back to, oh, I want to read more about that. And I will read the long form. So, take that content, slice it up a couple of different ways, repurpose it in different formats, in different mediums, and, put it out there as a part of your digital footprint.
So I know you guide organizations around, those kind of initiatives, Kelly, as part of your consulting role. Do you also work with individuals? I mean,
of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say somebody wanted help with positioning themselves for their consulting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
awesome.
fun. Oh yeah. Yep. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's interesting. When I do it for organizations, I actually do it individually for leadership first, because they're the ones who are kind of setting the stage and the tone. I just met with our faculty here a couple months ago and did a whole seminar on search engine optimization and why it's important to teach everybody how to write, because there's certain things that we can do to be good. Right. If you're a good writer, Google loves you, right? You don't have to go through all these AdWords and optimization and everything. They love authentic, like really well-written work, and the algorithms are designed to capture that. So I actually love to teach that to an entire company, so that, because everybody should be a writer in your company. I mean, back in the day when I first started an agency, we hired writers, right? Everybody's on LinkedIn, everybody's on social media, everybody's publishing. So if you can have an employer strategy where you encourage, let's teach you how to write, teach you what the messaging is in your company, and get them to start using certain words, phrases, put it together, a content plan, that pillar cluster model for your company, you get everybody involved in it. That's pretty powerful too. But it kind of starts from the top. So you have to have that leadership, figure out what they want to do first. So one-to-one, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
So I was just going to pause here to kind of think through with you guys what maybe questions you might have. I had other couple things that I was sort of thinking about. I don't know if it would make sense to show you guys some metrics that are important to think about if you guys want to get into that level, or maybe stick with a more higher level, just setting up your profile, or where you guys might want to go next. I know that this ends at 9, but I'm happy to stick around for a little bit longer.
Any comments, group? Or maybe, Kelly, let me just ask a question, for our job seekers out there. What's the best way for job seekers to really mine new career opportunities on LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a job listing function. So when I've looked for jobs, or I help students look for jobs, I have them look at two sources primarily, which is LinkedIn and Glassdoor. And I like the content that Glassdoor provides, because it does tell you some details about questions they might ask, salaries, it gives you some ratings and reviews. It helps you understand a little bit more about the culture. But then I go to LinkedIn and I try to find people. I try to look at the company. In fact, let me take a peek at a company here. Let's go to Dell, and I'm going to share my screen in just 1 second. So if we go look at, if I was targeting a company like Dell Technologies, for example, you guys can see my screen, right? Dell Technologies.
Yes.
So you can look at the jobs that are available, but I like to go to people. And I like to see, so I actually have second connections with a couple people here, meaning that I know somebody who works at Dell who's connected to Jennifer Jones or Sue or Jeff. I can look through here. I can actually sort through, maybe I just want to look at people in the United States. Or maybe maybe I'm moving to Dallas. So, who's in Dallas that I might know, and I can really kind of I know people like, here's Mackenzie. So I might actually I've got 5 connections with Rakesh. So I might go to my connections here and see if who do I know, or how can they help me get to that next level. I can go to the job postings and try to find a job in this area, and then see if I can, tell my shared connections, hey, this is a job I'm looking for. It looks like you're connected with Rakesh. Can you maybe help make an introduction? I might actually go to Rakesh's profile, right? It doesn't look like he's super active, but he is a little bit active on, Rakesh shared a post. He posted this about a month ago. I'm going to come over here and I could start I could like it, make some comments, join this conversation, so that when I do get introduced to Rakesh, there's already some frame of reference of who I am and maybe what my point of view is. And that's how I think you can use LinkedIn to really help you. Yeah, you're going to get some background information and some details from something like Glassdoor or salary and all that kind of stuff. But then here, and if for some reason, maybe Rakesh was the hiring manager, could direct message him, right? So, and we could all direct message Elon Musk right now. I don't know. I mean, we could, right? We have front row access to so many people utilizing LinkedIn. I've had students say to me, like, when I talk to them about this, they'll say, am I allowed to do that? Is that okay? Like, do I have permission? I'm like, doors open. If you didn't turn off your settings to not get connected or whatever, but I also, tell them, don't waste people's time. If you're on there, you need to be meaningful. You need to be precise. You need to tell them what you're doing. Don't spam people. Don't try to bait and switch them, right. Also adding value. So what I have them try to do is write something on LinkedIn that's meaningful, and then they might share it with somebody to get feedback. As a student, it's easy to do, but you also might want to start a conversation, invite them, put something on LinkedIn to say, I'm looking to get, and invite them to like comment on your articles, just say, hey, I just wrote this article. I'd love your point of view. I've been following you on LinkedIn. I appreciate your insights, and start creating a conversation. I would do that now. I would start doing those types of things on a regular basis. And I know, Kathy, you're going to ask me, well, how often should you do that? And I would say, right?
Yes.
I would say that the most important thing is not how often, but consistency. It's consistency.
Okay.
So if I were to tell you to run a marathon today, I mean, I don't know how many people could do that. I could not do that. So depending on your goals and what you're trying to achieve, if I just want to get fit, maybe I take a walk every day. If I wanted to run a marathon, I'm on a pretty rigid sort of regiment of how many times I run and what I'm doing. If I want to train for the Olympics, I mean, that's a full commitment. I'm all like every day, everything I eat, everything I do. So depending on what your goals are, if you're like, I don't really have time for this, and it's not really, if you just do it once a month, it's something, right? If you want to be more active, if you're thinking of making some changes, or you're trying to hire people, maybe once a week, maybe if you're really, I have a client who's kind of a disruptor, who's growing his business. He's on there maybe 2 or 3 times a day, right? Wow. Posting relevant content. People like, if anybody knows who Gary Vayner is, he's got multiple, media companies, and he's into NFTs, and he's just this really like intense, like just social media. He's like on 9 different social media sites. He, he'll post like maybe 5-6 times a day on LinkedIn, and all 9 of his sites. Like, he's really super active. He will answer every single message and every single post himself, and he will tell you he does not sleep. He is like that intense, but he'll say, that's what I like to do, and that's for me. You need to do what works for you.
Right. I think that's the important point. You need to do what works for you. Yeah. We have a couple of questions that have come in, Kelly. So, while we're still talking about the job search, one question was, because so many CFO searches are confidential, often you do not know the name of the company.
Oh,
Is there any way to ferret out the company name from details in the job listing?
I don't know.
Yeah, Pamela, that was a great question. I don't know
I don't
the answer
know.
to that either.
I mean, honestly, I'm a bit of a hacker. So, I mean, I have reverse engineered some things myself. I think that one of the things you need to think about is how do people in the analog world know, right? They talk to people. Hey, do you know who's hiring? What's going on? In my ecosystem, I mean, things are not posted online, but I mean, people know, right? People know what's going on. So again, that goes back to this idea that make sure you have a strong network and maybe find some trusted sources that you can ask those questions to. Hey, has anybody heard of any openings coming up? What's going on? I get why CFOs, that's confidential. I mean, people don't want, like, especially if you're a publicly traded company, it's like, you want to make sure that you're not. So, there might be hints and clues in the job description that, or maybe they're posting it on LinkedIn and you can sort of try to figure out, like, sometimes technology will give it away, if they're using a certain technology. I know, like, if it's like, there's NetSuite houses, there's Salesforce houses, there's Oracle houses, like, there's tribes of those types of companies that use those technologies. I'm not really sure, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, before we continue, we're at the top of the hour, my friends. And so Kelly has agreed to stay on, and we do have a couple more questions, and Craig would also like to see, and I think many of our CFOs would like to see some of the metrics you're talking about.
Sure.
So let me
see.
ask one more question before we go to the metrics. And this is a good question. It's back to the writing. What if you're not a good writer? Are there resources out there to help you with content?
Sure. So I think that writing takes practice. So there's a book. Actually, I have this book here. This is a phenomenal book. I teach this. There's a lot of very simple, straight up strategies to become a better writer. So Ann Handley, Everybody Writes, has a really good framework for being a better writer. I would also tell you that Grammarly.com, Grammarly.com, is a place that if I'm not confident, I can put my stuff in there. It'll help. It's an editor. It's an online editor. It'll give you feedback. So, you can also hire somebody to ghostwrite for you. But I think that for LinkedIn, being authentic and being yourself, you'll see that there's a lot of people who aren't. I mean, I sometimes go on as a professor and I'm a little cringy. I'm like, oh, but it's a little bit loose in that regard. This is not academic writing. This is about being authentic to you. So.
Okay. And then, one final question before we jump to metrics. Can you comment on the value of upgrading to the paid version of LinkedIn? What are the benefits of doing that? Does that make sense for different types of people?
Sure. So I did grab these sort of comparison sites are available all the time. Be mindful that a lot of the comparison sites are going to have a link, like an affiliate link. They're probably hawking LinkedIn. So every time you click on it, you're going to get a piece of the pie. But right here, this $29.99 gives you, they have it kind of categorized of almost about what your goal is. So if you're a job seeker, you're a business plus, meaning that you want to grow and nurture your network, right? Sales navigator. If you are actively selling and in sales and this is your job, I do think that this is a great tool. And then Recruiter Lite, I think that there are some, I don't know. My HR manager that I used to work with did some studies on LinkedIn and Glassdoor and some other sites, and she found that LinkedIn wasn't great at recruiting, which was kind of interesting for the amount of money that she had to pay. She was able to get similar things through Glassdoor with no major fees like this. So I would say the one thing that I like about Business Plus is that you get these InMail credits. which means that like right now, if you're not connected to me, I don't believe that you can send me a message. Like, I think you have to be at least a third or second connection in order to send me a message. So outside of that, if you're really looking to grow your network outside of that, then having those quote in-mail credits is really powerful. I do think that if you're recruiting for employees, this unlimited profile search, meaning that I can do a whole bunch of searches and look at other people's profiles that again aren't in my second, third degree connection network. It really just depends. I've sort of flopped between business and job seeker mode. Currently, I'm operating in the free mode because I'm not actively, building out my network or doing anything on LinkedIn at the moment. So, but I'll probably end up switching to that business plus when I get into my networking mode for. I have like a summer, I have the summer off, but I'm going to be working this summer. So I will be working this summer is my plan. So once school's out. So I think it just depends on what your goals are, but I do like the idea that.
So you can turn it on and off then, like you
can pay monthly. It's cheaper to pay yearly. I really like it when somebody views my profile. I really do like to see that. And it helps me to connect with other people. And if I'm able to, through some networking, send somebody a message that I don't really know very well, again, that can open doors. So I don't know that I would, I think for all of you, I wouldn't rush into signing up for any kind of premium account until you figured out your plan and what you want to do and what your goals are.
Great. Okay, well, we have a number of people that have hung in with us after the 9 o'clock hour. So let's continue. Metrics was of interest and the plan probably, right?
Yeah, so I put in the chat here a link to a long article about metrics and what those look like. So just so you guys have a reference, you can sort through, let me go to, sorry, I'm going to share a different screen here. So when you go on to, can you guys see my screen, this metric? It's on a really great graphic that they have in this article. And I've just pulled up this article, but they have, and I just thought this was really well laid out, the most important LinkedIn metrics to track. If you're a company and somebody's mentioning your brand, you should definitely react. People who viewed your profile, if they've commented or made some engagement or done something, or there's some reason for you to comment them back. I just looked at Carrie's profile and she's probably, if she messages me today, it's going to be awkward because I'm like, I don't know you. And I was just bragging about what a great profile you have. But so
she'll want to be your friend.
She'll want to be my friend. Yes, I can make friends. Right. So I think that looking at visitors, demographic data, engagement, these things are really, interesting because they'll inform how you're going to post your next content. So I've had some content do really well, some not do well, but it isn't stopping me from continuing. I'm just learning from everything that I'm posting. The impressions, I don't know if you guys are familiar with impressions, but when I scroll through my LinkedIn, if I see something, it's an like LinkedIn records that as an impression that it crossed my eyeballs. That's okay. And sometimes you'll get a lot of impressions. So what you want is sort of a ratio of how many impressions did you get, but how many people either clicked, liked, or shared or commented, right? You want the engagement. If you have a lot of impressions and no engagement, I don't know, it just means everybody saw you. It means they could have just passed you by, right? So if I have a lot of impressions and a nice strong metric for engagement, what's cool about that is for every person that engaged in my content was then somehow viewed by their network. So, it actually creates a larger reach. And that's going to be the power of LinkedIn. So impressions by themselves are not great. I mean, they're okay, but they're not where that wouldn't be the goal that I'd be chasing. So looking at some of this other stuff's a little tricky, but you can look at your followers by industry, company size, seniority, geography, a month of when you look into the actual dashboard that you have behind LinkedIn, and it gives you a flavor of maybe the audience that you're attracting. When I was posting a lot of marketing content, one of the things that I discovered is that I had a lot of salespeople reading my marketing content. And I found that to be very interesting. And one of the reasons I discovered and kind of started to tease out was that salespeople are really frustrated with marketers and vice versa. So there's a problem to solve there, and so that was kind of interesting. Brand mentions. So here's another trick for you. If somebody mentions like at Dell or at Microsoft, it actually can create some attention and visibility on LinkedIn. But we can also do that with people. So in this particular post today for this particular webinar, I don't know who did, maybe it was Susan or somebody mentioned me, right? So my network knew that I was speaking today, and it was kind of cool, right? And people are like, "Oh, that's so fun. What are you doing? Tell me a little bit more about that. Can you speak at my thing?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, absolutely. That's great." So, right. I mean, that just was an mention that somebody mentioned my name associated with this event. And so when you are doing networking or when you're doing posting, it's kind of cool to mention people in your network. And it'll show up in my feed that says, it'll say something like, Kathy Kilroy was mentioned in the news today, or, something of that nature. So we'll get to, the more you connect with people, the more you engage, the more you're going to create some visibility and awareness of who you are and what you're trying to talk about.
Great. We have another question that's come in from Jerry Novotny, and this is about military veterans who are transitioning from full-time military jobs to the civilian workforce. Do you have one piece of advice you can give for veterans on how best to do that? Or are you aware of any LinkedIn profiles that, are great examples of how they've showcased their military skills and made that transition successfully?
Yeah, I think that, I think you'll be surprised, Jerry, that there's a lot of people who have just a tremendous amount of respect for what you've done and what you've gone through. So it sounds like to me, like when I read this, it's sort of a, like I'm a little nervous to put myself out there. I would build your profile. I'd be very proud of what you've done and describing your military work. Now, here's the trick, and this is true for so many industries. When you're changing industries, right? When you're going from the healthcare world to the technology world, or if you're going from military to civil servants or public service, where you're maybe you're going into banking, maybe you're going into finance, or whatever the case may be, every industry has a language. So sometimes what I see when I'm looking at profiles like yours is there's a lot of military speak in there or acronyms. I don't know what they are, right? So you need to have some plain language that describes your skill. And a lot of those skills are going to be incredibly, transferable to, think about all the leadership stuff that you've learned over the course of your time with the military. That's very powerful. People want that. They need that. So think about creating like a just more plain speaked, profile. And then when you think about your content pillars, think about how those skills could apply to the industry that you're targeting. And I don't know if you have a specific industry that you are targeting, but that would be my advice.
Thanks, Kelly. Great advice.
So Valerie, you said it's about the digital conversation, not the views. It is. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you go to again, I keep thinking about a trade show. I mean, I've gone to some shows that are, 30, 40, 50,000 people big. And if I stood on a stage and a whole bunch of people saw me, yeah, maybe they know me or have my, know my name, but it's really about the people that I met and shook their hand and exchanged cards with. And those are the meaningful things that are important. And so don't feel like you have to make a lot of noise. I mean, you don't have to be an influencer on LinkedIn in order for it to work for you or for be powerful for you. It's about those connections. So I really appreciate the comment, Valerie. Mm-hmm.
What's your recommendation, Kelly, for accepting invitations? Only from people you know, or based on, how they're finding you and what they're commenting on?
That's tough because I accept every invitation. I do. And sometimes I regret it because they are trying to sell me something, but I've actually turned this around and been very clear with people who do connect with me that are trying to sell me something, because I have some interesting titles, right? So people are like, oh, you're a CMO, you've got money, or you're a professor, you can do this for me, or I do consulting for small businesses, so I have a lot of vendors who want to partner with me. And so and because I have multiple roles, sometimes people get confused about who I really am. So I'm just very clear. Somebody connects with me and they try to solicit me, I immediately fire back and say, hey, let me be clear about what I want. So I'm not your customer. I'm a professor. I just want this content. Here's the things that I would be interested in or not interested in. And I'm just very clear. And so I kind of redirect or shut down the conversation pretty quickly. But I have, over the pandemic in the last couple of years, had a lot of strangers reach out to me. And I have made some incredible friends and relationships through LinkedIn just by, keeping my door open. For some of you who are CFOs, it can get pretty solicity, and you can always turn that off too. You don't have to, and you don't, and if you ignore someone, because it'll come up and just say ignore or decline, you can just ignore and decline them. They're not going to get a nasty message that says, oh, Susan, denied me today, right? I mean, it's just going to not be responded to. It'll just. So I actually had a woman who I who I tried to connect with, and then I think it was something like 12 months later. It was a very long time where she said, oh, I'm not really on LinkedIn that much, and I just noticed your invite. And I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, you need to be on it a little more. And yeah. So on the flip side, Valerie, you asked what's the strategy on invites? And do you mean by how I would go about connecting with people on LinkedIn? Is that the question?
Let me come off no video and voice. I'm saying that it depends on your strategy and purpose on LinkedIn for how you want to accept an invite is what I mean. So if you're an open networker, you're an open networker.
Right. Oh, yeah.
If you're trying to curate a particular kind of community with people across various functions, then you might be, I don't even want to say selective, but you have to think about it, right? Or even you may say, I wouldn't accept an invite unless there's at least a message there talking about the affinity, right? Because a blank invite to me is like coming up to someone in a networking situation and just staring them in the eye. Because if you have a higher connection possibility, if you put a message in there on why,
Absolutely. Yep.
Or even if it's a content creator and you're like, there's stuff saying, I've been reading your stuff, I'd love to be part of your network. It just makes a big difference. So that's what I meant. It's about your strategy. There's no wrong way. And as you've been saying, everyone's always looking for the 1, 2, 3. This isn't Instagram where it's about all these followers so you can sell pink Croc shoes. It is a very much a long game. And if you look at LinkedIn's material, they say that. So this isn't anything people are coming up with on their own. It's a long game. So sorry to interrupt.
No, I love what you said. That's exactly spot on. And I think that, there isn't any right or wrong. I think it's actually just kind of committing to yourself what is what am I doing here? Right? What is my plan? For those of you that have gone to a trade show, if you don't have a plan before that show and there's 50,000 people there and you've got booths, like you have a plan, right? You know what you're doing there. You know what your mission is. You know who you want to meet. You've preset meetings. When you walk up to people, you have something to say, an elevator pitch, so you just think about it. Think about all the things that we're doing that worked in real life. We need to do that in this digital format as well. So Val, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't walk up to somebody in person and just stare at them. Like I need to say something. I think that sometimes LinkedIn makes it too easy for us to just click, 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 and then, yeah. And here's the other thing that I think is important for you guys too. If you are out there networking, when you put in a message to that person, okay, it goes into a little inbox. Now, I don't ever delete those. And here's why, because I have connected with a lot of people. So before I go back and have a conversation with them, or if they've messaged me again, then I can see, oh, wait a minute, how did I first get introduced to this person? If I never put that message in to begin with, I'm telling you that my brain is, I'm not going to remember why I tried to connect with them in the first place, and I'm starting from scratch. The other piece of this is that you can connect LinkedIn to like a
CRM.
Yeah, thank you. A CRM like HubSpot, they have a free CRM. So you could actually pull this, data into and connect, use and like operate and manage your LinkedIn through like a tool like that, and use HubSpot to make all your notes and comments and, really build out, this great contact, database for yourself. Some people will do it like simply on an Excel spreadsheet, but now that they have tools like HubSpot that have a free version of their CRM, it's pretty powerful. So if you're really,
that's a whole separate, separate and a great conversation, actually, Kelly, especially for, whether it's for business development or in transition, how do you access and use the free HubSpot and link it into the LinkedIn? So maybe that's a future session for us.
So,
but, we're coming up here to the, almost the half hour, and, Jim has a request. He said, would you please repeat how you get the LinkedIn metrics? Do you have to have the premium account to get data?
You'll get some information just when you post. You can get some information with a free account. So when you go to LinkedIn, let me see if I have something open here. So this article kind of that I put in the chat, that'll give you some really good information. When I go to home and I can look at views of my post, and I have all activity articles, posts, right? So you can look at, this had like 3 shares, 3 likes, 10 comments, 3 shares, just some stuff that I wrote about. Your post will have some data in it. So 410 views of your post in the feed. This will tell me, like, of course, I'm going to have lots of people from Aurora University because I have students who follow me, but, it tells me what companies followed me, what titles there were. So if you have the premium version, you're going to get a little bit more granular information than this, but the free version will give you that too. So you have to be posting in order to kind of get this information.
Great. Okay. Well, the time flew by. No. It was, thank you, Kelly. I mean, the time just flew by, and this is like a half-day workshop session, I think, for all of us to become more proficient, but we so appreciate your time and your insights. And I will tell you, my friends, that the copy of the handout you're going to get with all the live links, there are so many valuable resources in there. So, please, we'll send those out following this session. A couple of reminders as we wind down here. I'm very excited to tell you that our next CMG meeting is actually going to be in person. So we're going to meet at Carlucci's in Rosemont. Our doors will open at 7:15 a.m. for networking, and the program begins at 8. We have Lynn Franklin, who is a national speaker and presents on YouTube frequently, teaching us how to be the most persuasive person in the room.
Oh.
And very excited about that. So I hope you all come out for that session. FEI is also hosting a live meeting on Thursday, March 24th. And this is our annual Student Scholarship Awards, and this will be at the Union League Club. So join us for that as well, to recognize and honor the students and to connect in person with all of our friends. And you can register for both of these events at feichicago.org. For the guests who still are on the call, remember about the 6-month free trial membership and reach out to Susan for that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Kelly. It was
You're welcome. Thank you
awesome.
for being a great audience. Have a great day. Connect with me on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely.